Hey everyone, welcome to Electoral Dysfunction, the show where comedians and experts debate the news of the week from the safety of their quarantine. I'm your host, Tom Brennan. Welcome to the show. We got a good one for you today. Before we get going, our new weekly segment, the Kim Jong-un Death Watch. And as of 2:34 on Saturday, May 9th, when we are recording this, Kim Jong-un is still alive. Better luck next time, you Western devils. Anyway, we got a great show. Ned Thorne, waste no time. Star wipe me to the first guest.
Extra, read all about it. Extra, read all about it.
Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the show, fan favorite, newsboy Phil. Phil, it's so good to see you. My brother-in-law and my therapist have been asking me to have you back on the show. Welcome back.
Thank you, Tom. Back on the job. Essential worker here. You're looking at an essential worker. Essential that I die for the good of the economy. Read all about it.
Oh,
they did it. They finally did it. Over 100 years on the job, and finally I'm scared of adults. Read all about it.
It's a hard time for us all, newsboy Phil, but we're glad to have you back. The 1920 newsboy in a 2020 world. So last time we checked in, it was about maybe 7 or 8 weeks ago. You were on our first show. Again, as I said, huge fan response. And things were grim for you back then. Have things gotten better? How's your living situation right now, Phil?
Well, as you know, Tom, my living arrangement is tenuous at best. The streets is my apartment. Seeing them empty is akin to the feeling one would get as a child inside an empty living room, if I knew what that meant at all. Usually, I go for a hollowed-out horse carcass to sleep whenever I choose to, but I figure, treat yourself. I just wanted to find a nice hole to sleep in, a nice earthen hole to relax these tired, immortal child bones. So I found a nice big one. It was the first time I slept in the last decade, and not because I wanted to. I could not get out from under the pile of unclaimed bodies.
Oh.
Speaking of buried, let's give it up for the CDC report, a document so competent they had to leak it.
That's true. That report, I believe, just got leaked. Was it yesterday? None of it good news. Well, all of it news that everything that's happening right now is pretty much wrong.
Yeah, what day is yesterday?
Yesterday was, I believe, Friday, but it may have been Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
Right. Well, in lighter news, Elon Musk and a woman that calls herself Grimes had a child whose name is unpronounceable. Musk should stick to what he's good at, SEC violations and pillaging Zambian diamond mines. Read all about it, because it's true. Breaking news, we need heroes, not Cuomos. Having said that, if it looks like Papa and sounds like Papa, it must be Cuomo. In a show of goodwill, he gifted me one of those pinned masks. It's got a hole in it, but I think I should be okay.
He's good, that Cuomo. He tries to, he knows how to spread a dollar around.
Yeah, he reminds me of the homeless guy that was my kindergarten teacher, but also child wrangler. Doesn't matter. Story for another era.
Of course, for another era.
Of course, television has been happening in spite of my knowledge of it, which is limited at best. And the most exciting bit of TV is the pursuit of President Trump by our anti-hero, the modern-day Tony Soprano, COVID-19. As all things 2020, expect the twist to be, he had it all along. Read all about it. President Donald Trump is an asymptomatic carrier of disease. But we all knew that.
Oh,
Speaking
man.
of diseased whites, Travis and Greg McMichael, the white devil pigs who murdered Ahmaud Arbery, were tried without bail on Friday and will be pardoned by AG Barr on Monday. Of course, murder of minorities was only made illegal in Georgia back in 2016. Read all about it.
Oh, that's painful and true there, newsboy Phil. There's got to be some lighter news. It's Mother's Day weekend. What are your plans for Mother's Day?
Mother's Day. I ain't celebrated Mother's Day since the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire of 1911. If anybody has seen Eleanor Newsboy, Please let me know. She says I'm the breadwinner, but I ain't had a loaf in a long time. Having said that, I would love to snuggle with my personal mother figure, Nancy Pelosi. I hear her wine closet is spacious this time of year.
Oh my goodness. My favorite part of that is learning that your last name is Newsboy.
Phil Newsboy Phil. Newsboy Phil Newsboy.
Yeah. Well, it's a job and a name.
Tests, it was very complicated.
Of course.
Yep.
Newsboy Phil, I don't want to cut you off too soon, but we are running low on time. Anything else you'd like to report in the news before we move on?
Yes. Kim Jong-un went out of his way to fake his death in order to fool his enemies. I like to play dead, so someone throws a blanket on me. Read all about it.
Oh, Newsboy Phil, a tragic story. And if you want more horror stories like Newsboy Phil's, you should check out Welcome to Hell every single Saturday night, 11:59 p.m. on Socially Distant Improv on Instagram. Thank you very much, Newsboy Phil. I guess we lost him. Ned Thorne, star wipe me over to the panel. Please join me in welcoming our panel. First up, he's a very funny comedian, host of the Political Orphanage podcast that you can get anywhere you steal your podcast. Andrew Heaton is back. Hey, Andrew, how are you?
I'm back. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me, Tom.
It's always a pleasure to see you. Another very funny comedian and one of the hosts of the BuzzFeed pick, Warm Milk. You can see it streaming Wednesday and Saturday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Jolie Darrow is with us. Hey, Jolie, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me here. It's definitely a nice way to break up my day.
Yep.
My very long day.
If nothing else, the goal of this show is to just break up a day and help you get to the end of it. Speaking of getting to the end of the day, very funny comedian coming to us from the great city of Philadelphia. Craig Liggeons is with us. Hey, Craig, how are you?
I'm great.
Oh,
thank you for having
nice.
me, Tom. I'm here with my life partner, Andrew. By the time we're through this, we'll be happily married.
Fantastic. Here as well to tell you to fill out your fucking census, please. Sara Valenzuela is back on the show. Hey, Sara, how are you?
I'm great. My life partner is doing laundry, so I'm happy to be Zooming with you guys. Let me tell you.
We're happy to have you here. And finally, almost mispronounced the word finally, editorial columnist for the New York Daily News, my buddy, my pal, my lifelong chum, Robert George. Hey, Robert.
Hello, Tom. Hello, everybody. And I'm here with my life partner, too, Mike's Hard Lemonade, the unofficial sponsor of the Electoral Dysfunction Quarantine.
Mike's Hard Lemonade, I've never drank you, but if you want to sponsor this show, we will take your money. So, not a great week in America. Friday, we're going to need those Mike's Hard Lemonades. Friday, May 8th, 2020 will probably be in the history books as one of the all-time highs in unemployment. I believe the all-time high in unemployment, or one of the all-time highs since they have been documenting it, up to 14.7% unemployment. This is virtually overnight, thanks to the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic and the shutdown. This closes off I think generously you could call, challenging week for the President of the United States, who is still Donald John Trump. He this week, earlier the week, floated that he was going to close the coronavirus task force, but then announced he was not shutting it down because he did not know how popular it was. I don't know if popular is the word I'd use, but
their single was a hit. I love their EP.
That's true, yeah. The B-sides, not as good.
Did the task force have higher ratings? Is that why he's like?
That might be it.
Yeah, that's like the response to Brooklyn Nine-Nine. They're like, oh, we're gonna get rid of it, but people like it apparently.
Who knew? Yeah.
Oh man, I do like Brooklyn Nine-Nine more than the task force. Although I would watch a show where Captain Holt and Dr. Fauci teamed up. To close off
against
the week,
all odds.
It would be sad. To finish off the week, it came out that over the course of this week, it came out that more than a few people in the Oval Office have tested positive for COVID-19, including one of the president's valets who had been in the Oval Office very recently this week. Kate Miller, who is the press secretary of the Vice President Mike Pence and wife of Stephen Miller, who is a Nazi, has tested positive, and I believe is an assistant to Ivanka who tested positive. Apparently, the president was volcanic in rage the words of the report.
Lava level was the exact word. Lava level. You know.
Because he felt that the White House was not doing a good job communicating to him about the crisis. And I have to give the president credit. I also don't feel like the White House is doing a great job communicating.
I want to see the rage chart. I want to see where the volcano is compared to like, Hindenburg level versus mere smoldering. Like, I want to know what the various stages of presidential rage are.
Yeah.
I wonder, is there a Pompeo volcano level? I'm just kind of curious.
Very nice. That pun brought to you by the Daily News.
Mike's Hard Lemonade. Thank you.
Mike's Hard Lemonade, please sponsor our show. So I think it's fair to say not a great week, particularly a week given that the president had been pushing, before this, that we're reopening. We're seeing amazing things. I believe earlier today he said, tweeted that we are transitioning to greatness. So thoughts on the week that just happened, and how's everyone feeling? We can analyze it, but emotionally, how are we all feeling about the situation?
They can't keep the coronavirus out of their own cabinet, but they want everyone to open up like that. So I just heard 11 Secret Service members also have tested positives for COVID-19. Yet these are the same people that want us to go on out there, reopen. Yeah, we'll take a few losses, but come on, guys.
Well, they would catch a bullet for the president, so they also catch a bug for the president too. Kudos to those Secret Service guys.
So Tom, I don't know if this is allowed, but I do have a personal anecdote from this week that really got my goat. So I work customer service for a company I will not disclose, but it is Mike's Hard Lemonade. I'm just trying to get that ad money, but it's a wellness company. And people have been calling in, we're really delayed because because of the virus and social distancing, yada, yada. People have been calling in to get their orders prioritized because we told people if they're an essential worker, we'll prioritize their order. Got a call from a supposed nurse this week who's kept me on the phone for 10 minutes trying to tell me that they're actually injecting people with coronavirus, specifically the elderly and the sick. And hospitals actually aren't overwhelmed. There's complete floors that are blocked off, roped off, no one's on them. So that's where some of the country is at. I found that out this week. That sucks.
I hope that's not true. I hope she's not right.
I also know that.
As someone who routinely wears a lab coat to pretend to be a doctor on dates, I have my share of impersonating medical officials, but I would never do it to spread conspiracy theories with Mike's Hard Lemonade. Shame on you, fake nurse.
Andrew, by the way, Andrew, do you do that just to hope that some woman will check out your PPE? Is that what's going on right now?
That is my opening line, George. That is.
And I don't want to find out how that's going for you. By the way, Jolie, not telling people where you work is like a cornerstone of electoral dysfunction. So good. Welcome to the club. I'll share my resume after we're done. So yeah,
I think I'm the only one that is allowed to say what his day job is.
Yeah.
That's
I will say I work with a lot of medical professionals, and Jolie, that lady's out of her mind. But I also will say that I think it's been very frustrating as a New Yorker, and I've seen a lot on Twitter from anywhere else where people are comparing, all the states, all the governors, whatever. We all know that there's a bunch of homosexuals out there. We get it. Congrats. Slow clap for you. When you see him during a real year, we'll figure out another year when there's not a virus, decide whether you want to go on a date with him. Some of us still do. We love him. But I will say it's very frustrating as a New Yorker and in the middle. Like you said, I'm in New York, I'm in East Village, all of those of us that are here, to see so many people just not kind of getting how horrible it is here. Yeah. Because, I have family in Texas, and like Andrew and I said, we're from different states, but it has been very frustrating to see kind of the banter on Twitter, and Jolie, the people who are saying really these crazy things. And
Sara, this person was from San Antonio.
That's why I live in New York.
Sara, why is your mom calling Jolie? Knock it off.
She's not. But no, it's been frustrating. It is, because you kind of like, we all have like used comedy and whatever to laugh it off, but it's very frustrating to have all of us here still inside of our homes trying to take this seriously, and then seeing states like my home state of Texas and other places just, send them out. It'll be fine.
And I think like there's a fairness to be to other states. So like New York City and your northeastern cities are very different. They're much more densely populated. And we are used to the notion of like, we spend the winters being like, guess I got to stay in until this is over. So it's a thing we're trained for. So like, I think there is a fair argument to be made that, that different states and different areas can and should react to this differently. But exactly as you said, like my sister is a Houston resident, and they just like the general tone from down there is like, oh, this is just a blue state problem. And she was like, since we've reopened, the numbers of infected in our state are going up. It's like, yeah, it's not as dense a problem, but it's still like, it's not getting better by reopening. Robert.
I'm not as, and obviously looking at this from a distance, I'm not as furious at say Governor Abbott in Texas as I am, say, Governor Kemp in Georgia, for example, who is literally putting in danger, the well-being of my family members that live there. I mean, Texas reopened because the number, in contrast to some other states, the number of cases and deaths were at it's all relative at this point, but at not an outrageous level. And he also said, and even when he allowed or authorized the opening of restaurants, he said, they could only be 25% of their capacity, which I think is reasonable, and I think that those are the kind of baby steps that most states, as they slowly reopen, will have to be taking. That said, you also have Abbott running to the aid of the salon owner who decided to open up ahead of time, and when the local mayor, I guess, had her arrested, all of these Republicans, descended, ran out to defend her and bail her out, and Ted Cruz, got his hair cut, but did not get his beard shaved, which I thought was kind of interesting. So Texas is going to Texas.
We have a new motto. What is it? There's more important things than living
in Texas. There's more important things than living in Texas. I'd like to add that, in defense of that hair salon owner, she did have to cut Ted Cruz's hair. So I think she's learned her lesson.
So pour some Mike's Hard Lemonade out for her.
There's still slime on the shears.
Yeah, she had to throw them.
He didn't get the beard.
The CDC seized those shears the minute it was over. Andrew,
one of the things that I've been struggling with to kind of figure out while I'm doing this, I don't have a background in pandemic healthcare policy, and so I find myself constantly making judgments based on whether I like the governor or not, and then trying to figure out how to weaponize my already existent opinion.
Mm-hmm. And then I hear that, buddy.
And then when I look at the math, then the whole equation changes. Because like I looked up, the states are very different, and they're all dealing with different circumstances. Yeah. So I don't think that this number is just like who's doing well and who's doing poorly. But so New York, where I used to live, where most of you guys live, is 135 deaths per capita right now, and Texas is like 4 deaths per capita right now. So when I look at that, I'm like, yeah, like I kind of get why Texas would feel more emboldened to do that. And then the other thing that I'm kind of confused by is I don't know, like I get if we open up too quick that there'll be a rebound effect. We don't want that, but it was my understanding that the whole flatten the curve business was not to try and fix the coronavirus, but just to make sure that hospitals weren't overwhelmed. So if we've already gotten past that, shouldn't we be at the point of starting to reopen the economy in baby steps?
The problem with that, though, is, and if you see it just from working with doctors and medical professionals, is that the numbers aren't necessarily correct. So, for instance, we even had a problem here in New York that deaths counted towards coronavirus didn't include people who died in their homes. And for instance, like for Latino communities and other communities of color, especially in New York, and Tom pointed to this, we're really densely populated. We're also multi-generational homes. So people can't, another thing that I get frustrated with, it's not as easy for people in New York City to isolate when they
Right.
when they have coronavirus. So we're seeing that now numbers are coming out of people going to morgues or going to, unfortunately, the refrigerated trucks outside of hospitals that are now being considered a count towards coronavirus. So those numbers are changing. And that's the problem, I think, with
Sara, kind of the idea is that the math is insufficient, and so the problem might be that we're just, it's the theory of we should open up when we get over the hump is correct, but we haven't actually hit the hump yet because
I think a lot of medical professionals are, and I'm not one, so don't take this as the Bible, but a lot of medical professionals don't want to encourage that until we actually have a better understanding of the count.
Well, and the other issue too is the testing. Like until we have actual widespread testing, so people can know whether or not they have it and will infect people and whatnot. Like that is, it seems like this is something that everyone's been saying and like screaming for every day for the last 3 months or so. It's like we need testing, and it just feels like we're like dancing around that. Yeah. It's like almost like the bystander dilemma. It's like I thought you had the testing. No, like it's wild.
The good news is this week, I believe the White House announced that everyone in the White House staff will get weekly tests. So
thank God for that.
I mean, cool.
Well, I
give it to the rest of DC.
Please fact check me, Robert. I did just
I think it actually may have been because of the issues involving people close to the president and the vice president and the president's daughter and the Secret Service, etc. I think they're actually trying to upgrade it to those people that have close contact with the White House inner circle. That it'll be daily. I think it's upgrading to daily testing. I may have to double check that, but I believe they're trying to upgrade that to daily testing because, I mean, we're not going to make any jokes about this, but you want to have the most highest level of health security for the president of the United States, and
I do want that.
Well, we do want that, and I'm not going to let it.
We all want that.
No bad jokes here. But it is interesting.
But more white people getting tests than people of color. Go ahead.
Well, that's a factor.
You said people close to the president.
people close to the president. But anyway, that's
sure.
So I think they are going to be trying to basically get daily testing for those who for the however many people it is that have to have regular ongoing contact with the president.
I want to talk very briefly. I want to move over to another topic, but before we do that, I do want to just jump back to the unemployment numbers, which are at the
Are they doing okay? I hadn't checked the last couple of weeks. Is that fixed yet?
Yeah, no. It was 14.7 before we started this conversation, but I believe on technicalities, it's really all of them. It just says on the website. I do want to talk about that briefly. I think this is the week, it seems to me, like this is more anecdotal, but this week I feel like certainly the case in New York, I imagine elsewhere, it started these like sort of drips of businesses closing and more closing. I think this is a week where like the rubber really hit the road in terms of the tangible damage that this is going to cause for employment, for businesses, for particularly New York City, but country as well. But and I think all kind of capped off by these unemployment numbers on Friday, which, as we discussed right before we got on the call, like the unemployment is people who have lost their jobs who have filed for claims. It does not necessarily include also people who have stopped looking for work for whatever reason. So it's
or people it doesn't take into account. We're probably at a point now where you're not really you don't really have a high level number of people who have stopped looking for work because it's early in the crisis. But it certainly doesn't take into account people who have been trying to apply. And this is happening in states across the country. The local departments of labor are so overwhelmed, their sites are so overwhelmed that a lot of the applications have not yet even gone through. So that's a certain number. And in fact, the Bureau of Labor Statistics that puts out the unemployment numbers every month they themselves said that the actual unemployment rate would probably closer to 19% if you factor in businesses that benefited from the small business PPP loans, where they kept people on their salary because they were able to get the loans, but those people are not working. Those people are at home, and normally those people will be considered unemployed. So the actual number is closer to somewhere between 19 and 20%.
And there's no guarantee that those businesses that have that insurance now will be there in 6 months' time.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'm hoping that a positive thing that comes out of this. I like the idea of UBI. I mean, we can get into the
universal basic income.
Universal basic income. We can get into how to go about doing it smartly. But the basic idea that everybody gets some kind of cushion, and we start sort of replacing this labyrinthine system of like, well, I go here for, if I've got unemployment insurance, and I go here, like, just kind of get rid of it. Everybody gets some money, and just we all get some. I like the idea of that, and I think like everybody getting checks through this was, I haven't received mine yet because I move around so much that I don't know that I will, but I feel like people generally were warm on those, bullish on those prospects of like, hey, do you guys want another round of checks, or do you want us to bail out the airline industry again?
Right.
Like,
well, that's the thing. It's like first of all, I got mine. I immediately was like, oh my God, I can pay off some of my credit card debt this month. Like, what a joy. But it's also like, and I think I'm too dumb to be able to know the answer to this. One of you might have a better answer, but it's like that money that people aren't spending at restaurants or, on flights, vacations, things like that. Like, it's got to be somewhere. The money still exists somewhere. So it's like, why can't we be giving people that money? That's, again, it's like there is a whole bunch of people who don't have work, and it's not like the money disappeared. I don't know. Again, I'm too dumb to know the answer.
Yeah, that is not a dumb question at all. I think to that point, and Andrew,
Yeah, I had that question too, Jolie.
Well, no, and I think yesterday, like, it is a cause that's normally seen as like the left-leaning cause, and I think yesterday Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris and Ed Markey from Massachusetts introduced a bill for $2,000 a month payment to every American, and I think an extra money if they have kids. But at the start of this crisis, noted lefty Mitt Romney also called for universal basic income.
Wait, can I just say that Mitt Romney, I have been saying this for years, but I feel like Mitt Romney is like, he's going to one day have a moment where he like comes out as a Democrat, and we're all gonna have to like pretend like we didn't already know. Like, we're gonna be like, yeah, good for you.
He's the George Michael of the political system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, we're so shocked. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, Governor Mitt Romney running against Senator Mitt Romney would be interesting, because Governor Mitt Romney pushed through essentially marriage equality in Massachusetts.
Medicaid and
Medicare for
Obamacare, yeah.
Although Senator Romney did vote to impeach the president, so Senator Romney is demonstrably
he's
less.
He's a Democrat.
Yeah, he's demonstrably less partisan than presidential candidate.
Well, also too,
it's true. Presidential candidate Mitt Romney was like, oh man, wouldn't it be crazy if I like came out and said all the worst things in the world? Yeah, that would never work for a Republican nominee. I just won't.
Utah though is also Utah is also a very interesting state, and Mormonism,
generous.
Mormonism is interesting religion as well, because it's very traditionally conservative in many ways. However, they do have the equivalent of sort of from the context of the church's teachings, they do have a sort of a welfare system that where they live.
They've got a very good social safety net. The Mormons are. It's a very good community, and they've got a wonderful community network. And there's
exactly, and it's a more religious and culturally based social safety net than it is a government based one. But the basic, the general principle is the same. So when you factor that part in, it's not surprising that Romney. The other point is, and I do want to quickly put this out here. There's another group of legislators that are also talking about these large monetary payments. Well, what other kind of payments? These direct payments to workers, and you've got people on the far left, like the California Congresswoman. I'm going to screw up her name. Not Alina Presley. Indian name from California. Anyway, she's the head of the Progressive Caucus. She's got something that's similar to that $2,000 payment, but also so too. On the right is the very, very conservative Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri. So there is actually.
Sorry, Robert. Were you talking about Congresswoman Jayapal?
Yeah, Congresswoman Jayapal.
Washington, not California, but.
Oh, is it? Oh, really?
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah,
West Coast states all look the same to me.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. But I'm also confused.
Thank you, Craig.
With the other there's a California congressman, Ro Khanna, who is also who I think is a co-sponsor of that bill.
Yeah, it was him and Tim Ryan, and it was a.
There is, and I think a few months from now, we're going to be coming back to this. There is room for far left, far right, and in between to find some common ground here on these kind of payments.
If nothing else, you'd think they'd find common ground on the fact that there's an election this fall, and they could all send every American a check every month on the level, which might help them all running for re-election. Craig, I want to make sure your thoughts on the unemployment numbers and on the breaking news at the end of this week in terms of the economy.
The numbers are going to continue to go down. I'm presently the only person of my close friends that hasn't lost their job, and we're talking about 20 to 30 people that I've had to commiserate with and say I'm sorry and all that. I'm looking, the song "Blame Canada" has always been one of my favorite songs, but I'm looking at their system there, and ever since it started, they've set up a system where workers get $2,000 a month. No questions asked.
So they already have UBI throughout this?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, since it started, since late March, early April. So everyone in Canada gets $2,000 a month, period, that meets the same criteria that we did if your household has under 75,000. And their tests, and they have tests regularly, and their numbers have gone down. And it's too late to defect, but if I could get $2,000 a month, and there was no haggling at all. I mean, how long did it take for some of us to just get $1,200 in?
I haven't got mine yet.
Yeah, and Andrew still hasn't got his, so he'll probably die tomorrow. But
yeah. For either of my identities, neither of them have got it.
Yeah.
2,000 is more than my normal paycheck.
Yeah, and they're getting it. Yeah, and they're getting it every month, Jolie, in Canada, and it was nothing. It's like it was decreed. It was they talk about it. Hey, this coronavirus is going to be bad. Let's do something for the people that are going to lose income. So, bam, $2,000 a month for everyone who meets his criteria.
And, but Craig. They do some very weird things up in Canada, like ban assault weapons as well too. So you can't go by that kind of crazy
True.
stuff.
They hate freedom up there, I think, is the most important thing. Could talk about this all day. I want to turn to other big story out of Washington for the week, which is the rule of law died yesterday, and our I think for good this week. It's
was
been
it
on life
Corona?
support for a while.
Did it take it out?
No. I think it died. Cause of death was just America.
Not a case of America, huh?
Another case of America.
What is it, Jaja? We didn't set the bar high enough.
Very nice.
I see what Sara did there.
All right.
I took it from you, Robert. I'm so used to you doing it.
You stole it.
Very nice, man. If the Daily News, I assume newspapers are hiring right now. So,
It's always a good time to get into news journalism.
Yeah, that would be wrong.
It's the one industry that people need but won't pay for.
Anyway, America's dying.
No, actually, Tom.
Anyway.
Unfortunately, no, it's not.
That's true. Good
there
point.
are a lot more out there.
That's true. Yeah, many. Former NSA director Michael Flynn, who had a solid, I think, 24 days on the job in the Trump administration before he resigned. And he resigned because he had lied to the vice president, Mike Pence, about connections he had with foreign governments and business dealings and the like, and particularly during the transition as well, and a whole bunch of shady dealings, which he pled guilty for. But don't worry, justice is done. He pled guilty for twice.
He pled guilty twice. He pled guilty twice.
Just in case you didn't hear him the first time.
He was so sure that he was guilty.
He pled
I like
guilty
to believe
twice.
that went down with, how do you plead? Guilty? Wait, really? Yes, guilty. That was twice.
Guilty.
I've got a theory on this. I think this actually makes a lot of sense. I think we should be going.
The Justice Department, I'm going to make sure I get the full info out there before your theory.
Yeah.
Justice Department dropped all charges this week because because according to them, it was an unfair case that was brought. Former President Barack Obama, Robert, had the breaking news right before we started. Apparently in a leaked conversation has said this is really bad for the rule of law. So that's a no good. Andrew, sorry, go ahead, Robert.
I'm sorry.
Context on that, and then we'll go to Andrew. Robert first. Sorry.
Well, just very quickly, yes, there's a regular conference call between former staffers and administration officials from the Obama years. I guess they call themselves the Obama Network or something like that. And the former president said it's almost unheard of that somebody would. He actually misspoke. He said that somebody who pled guilty to committing perjury when it was not actually perjury. It's something separate, which is lying to the FBI, and the DOJ would just decide to drop the case. Now, something that's interesting here is that the judge involved in it does not have to accept that, by the way. In another case where DOJ sort of switched almost near the end of it, the sentencing recommendations for Roger Stone, who was found guilty in a court of law. The judge pushed back on it. I mean, the sentence that they gave down was within the broader guidelines, but the judge said, no, this is absurd. You can't. I need to have some solid reasons why these career lawyers withdrew from the case, and why the department is now changing its position. So it will be interesting to see if the judge in this case decides to accept the Department of Justice just dropping the case. Just to be clear, the reason why they said that they were dropping this is that they said that while he lied to the FBI, his deceptions were quote not material. To understand why that is absurd, you have to realize that the FBI was questioning him because of these contacts that he had, these conversations he had with Russian officials. And Flynn said that it had nothing to do with sanctions that the Obama administration had imposed because the Russians had interfered in the election. And to say that that's not material to like an ongoing investigation is kind of blows the mind. Anyway.
Doesn't hold up. Andrew, your theory.
Yeah, so let me explain this to folks at home who don't understand how the justice system works. It's basically like a circuit breaker. So if you're doing a little bit of guilty plea, it can handle that. If you do a lot of guilty plea, you blow the circuit breaker. And that's what happened. Or if you want to use like a math example, if you had you can go 360, right? Like on a clock. Like if you go towards 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, oh, now I'm menacing again. And that's what happened. So if you get questioned by the FBI, admit to a bunch of shit. and then really plea hard,
They
like
can't take
murder,
it.
embezzlement, all that stuff, and then they're like, "Fuck,
Forget it.
This guy now."
That's why Kennedy was shot, because the guy confessed in advance, and they were like, "Dude, can't handle this today.
Yep.
Can't handle it. Get out of here, Lee Harvey Oswald." Anyway,
Hashtag history.
yep, all of it true, none of it made up. So I want to also step back. Robert, you mentioned that there's a regular conference call of people who used to be in the Obama administration.
I went in on that call.
I was going to say the opposite. Just like, imagine your old job was like, we need to have a weekly conference call. You don't work here anymore, but you have to get on this call every week. Like, I don't care who you are. I'd be like, no, that can't happen.
I would do it for Obama.
Sure,
Yeah.
of course. For him, yeah. I mean, if he asked me to, I would get on a conference call. That's my and
No.
anyone who knows me knows that is a huge sacrifice.
Yeah. Now I might not pay attention the full time, but I will
Right.
tune in.
I'm sorry. What was that, Sarah?
I'd be doing a lot of. I think Mr. President's right. If you ask me, I think you guys all make sense, but I'd go with him anyway.
Wait, does Jimmy Carter do this? Does
Yeah,
Jimmy Carter have like a conference call with a bunch of 90-year-olds?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
like
No, he gets on a conference call, but like every week forgets that all his staff has already died. So it's just him. And it's like, all right, today's
oh,
the
that's
day.
right. Jared died 2 years ago. Okay,
Wow.
Just you and me, Mondale.
Mondale. Oh no, Mondale's gone.
That got dark really quick.
Just him and Walter Mondale.
Is
All right.
Walter
Love you,
Mondale-
Jimmy.
is-
Walter Mondale.
is-
Yes,
Walter
as
Mondale
Jeff-
is still
like
alive.
Kim Jong-un, Walter Mondale is still alive.
It's Jimmy Carter, Walter Mondale, and Chris Matthews. I think
Yeah,
that's
no.
basically.
He's got
it.
time again. That's true.
Yeah.
That's
James
why-
Fallows.
which-
Fallows too.
Which is
He's
why
a- he's a-
Jimmy
he's a
Carter
nice
probably
guy.
canceled the call once Chris Matthews had time again. Forget it. I can't do him, Jimmy Carter. So thoughts on the I think there's not a. I think this story is still unfolding. It's funny, but at the same time, like, it is fairly, like, I'd say, shocking that someone who pled guilty to
Twice.
almost treason twice has had charges dropped against him, particularly given those charges were used primarily as evidence, or at least for investigations against the president. Is this it for justice?
I wouldn't call it shocking, though. Was anyone here shocked that the
I guess not,
president's
no.
administration did this?
No.
Got me there. Good
Shocked.
point.
Shocked. Two shocks.
But yes,
Yeah.
I think it's shocking for those of us who love, democracy
Yeah.
and
the rule of
justice.
law.
But when I read it, I was not surprised. I was just like, here we go.
Well,
Guys,
it's
I
also.
think I speak for everyone here in saying that power is a naked, raw, surging force that you use arbitrarily to support your allies while hurting your enemies. It's not an equitable thing that works
Right.
in the system.
I'm
This
gonna
is
have to
true.
ask you to not say naked again, Andrew. And the last damn
I'm not
time.
wearing pants.
He said
Yeah.
naked, but
Oh,
not
sorry.
naked, naked.
Yep.
That's
From
right.
Oklahoma, I
Oh,
said
well,
that's-
and
That's
also
an Oklahoma naked.
this is part. We have to keep the eye on the ball here, because this is kind of this is part of a long game that goes back to more than a year now, going back to when William Barr became Attorney General, and a lot of the main focus when he came in was to exonerate, find every every possible loophole that he could take advantage of to exonerate the president of the charges and accusations involved in the Russia probe, and so the first part of that was his immediate insta-spinning of the Mueller report, and to make things so gray and cloudy and so forth, the people just didn't. They kind of threw up their arms and said, "Oh well, it was this and it was that," but they didn't really say that there was collusion, and he can't really prove that there was obstruction. So that was kind of part one, and then part two has been to try and minimize any accountability for some of the people that have been that have actually been found guilty. So that was the Roger Stone stuff, and now we see what's going on with Mike Flynn. And there is somebody else. There's a former U.S. attorney, John Durham. I think I got the name right there. Who is examining the examiners, who is investigating what the FBI did during Russia and so forth. So the idea, if everything comes together, sometime in the summer or the fall, this person investigating will try and show that the whole investigation, the whole Russia thing, was as the President Trump has been saying all along, was just a hoax, and it was an attempted coup to undermine him, and that's basically what's going on.
So it's not great.
Not great.
I think there's a lot to unpack on this, and I think we'll be talking more about it in future weeks. I wanna move on a little bit, but I will say I don't know about the rest of you. I was pretty heartened in his interview this week, I believe with ABC or possibly Fox. I may mix it up. So the president did say he has learned a lot from Richard Nixon.
It was definitely Fox and Friends. Absolutely.
Good. Fox and Friends. He's learned a lot from Richard Nixon, so that's good. And
You're gonna take cake for the best.
Tom, what he learned was not to fire anybody, because if you don't fire the people, you get to keep them close and control them and so forth. So it was kind of funny that apropos of what we just talked about, that he now says that Mike Flynn was railroaded and so forth, and just ignores the fact that he fired him because he lied to Mike Pence. But anyway, that's what he learned from Richard Nixon, and not to fire anybody.
A.G. Barr did say history is written by the winners. So, and if you don't believe him, watch The Last Dance on ESPN. So I want to turn to one last news story this week. Is a very difficult one, but I think really that needs to be talked about, which is the shooting of Ahmaud Arbery in Brunswick, Georgia. So this story was something that was not as kind of busted out onto the mainstream coverage this week. The backstory is in February. I believe it was February 23rd. Ahmaud Arbery was out jogging in Brunswick, Georgia. He was chased down by, I believe, 2 or 3 white men. I think there was 2 cars, but only 2 shooters, who alleged that they thought he had been a robber, chased him down and shot and killed him. This week, no charges had been brought in the intermittent time because of various complications and some weirdness is a polite way to put it, with the district attorney. This week a video was leaked of the shooting, which I think, it's fair to say anyone with eyes who saw that video would have a hard time giving any benefit of the doubt to the people who shot and murdered this man. And Friday, or was it Thursday or Friday, that charges were officially brought on the McMichael boys, as I have them written here in my notes on Duo. I'm curious about our thoughts, and I think the thing that was most striking about this to me is just the fact that that video existed probably for a really long time, and
2.5 months.
2.5 months. I mean, for a really long time from the moment it happened, and yet only because it was finally released to the public was any real action taken, and that was hard.
Yeah, and the thing is, when it happened, or when the tape came out, and an inordinate amount of people were asked me, did you see the tape? Did you see the video? And the thing is, I didn't need to see it, because if anyone here had just told me that 2 white men in Georgia with guns killed an unarmed black man, I don't have to see a video. I already believe you. Why would I need to see proof of that or of it happening? It's not a story that anyone made up. This is where we've been living for the past, however many years, of unarmed black men being shot either by police or by a father and son vigilante duo who claimed that this man they were making it a citizen's arrest, and he didn't come along quietly.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is not how, I agree with everything you just said, Craig. To add to that, that's not how citizens arrests work. That was just a vigilante mob that shot a guy. Like citizens arrest, most states have some kind of citizens arrest law. And basically the idea is if you witness somebody doing a crime, you are legally empowered to detain them and bring them to a police officer and an officer of the peace. What you're not allowed to do is just arrest people on suspicions that you have, which is to put it very kindly what they were maybe trying to do at best. But like you watch the video.
Don't need to put it kindly.
Yeah, you know, like, no, they just fucking killed the guy, right? You watch the video, like according to them, in their defense, I'm not saying in their defense, what they're saying is, they're saying we thought he was a burglar and so we wanted to talk to him. Well, you don't have to talk to somebody if you don't want to, if they're just a person. Like, you can't just come up to somebody and go, I think you might be a criminal. I want you to stop jogging and talk to me. That's not allowed. And like, in particular, if I just point a gun at you and go, I want you to talk to me now. Like, you don't have to do that. And they did that. They pulled up in front of him so that he couldn't get away from him. Like, it was vigilante mob justice, except minus the justice, just the mob bit.
Yeah, it's this brought back not unlike Trayvon Martin, which is amazingly enough 8 years ago. This brought back some really uncomfortable.
Thank God it hasn't happened at all since.
Well, yeah. Well, it has. There have been a number of cases where unarmed black men have been killed either by cops or others, but the Trayvon Martin and this one are slightly different in the sense of you have these essentially vigilantes who decide
self-appointed.
What?
Self-appointed.
Self-appointed vigilantes who decide to go after some of these other ones. I'm not going to defend any of them, but there are a lot of them are these issues where cop decides to an actual person in law enforcement overreacts or does whatever and kills somebody. These ones where you've got these self-appointed vigilantes are slightly different, but it brings back. Let me just finish, Tom. It brings back a something that happened to me back when I was like a young 20-something person, which was a long time ago, as Tom will always remind. Will always remind
very
people. Very long. And I was in Annapolis, Maryland, where I'd gone to college, and this was I think this was like the summer after I'd graduated, but I was still living there, and. I was going down to visit some friends of mine about a block from the St. John's College campus, which is not too far from the Annapolis docks. Historically speaking, by the way, where slaves were first brought to the United States in what is that year? 1619. Hello, and I was knocking on the door, but my friends, because their doorbell wasn't working. They didn't hear. I went around the corner to check their back gate, and it was locked. And so I walked off to the dock, and suddenly sixth sense goes off. I turn around, and there's this very big, burly white man with a baseball bat in his hand, and we look at each other, and he says, "Look, yeah, you. I saw you. You stop right there." And as Andrew says, if somebody is waving something threatening in his hand, whether it's a gun or a bat, and say, you stop right there. No, I don't think I'm going to stop right there. But this is the kind of interesting situation. And to anybody who says, well, the video shows, Aubrey, trying to grab the gun and pull it away and so forth, why would he do that? If you're not in that kind of situation where somebody is threatening you with violence, if you don't comply to them, you end up going. You have your two instincts: fight or flight. And so if you throw yourself at the person, what's going to happen? In my case, I opted for flight. And I didn't decide to like run all the way down the street. I ran like half a block and ducked into like a coffee, not a coffee shop, but a cookie or ice cream parlor. I forget what it was, and turned to the person behind the counter and I said, "Call the police." And this guy follows me in there and he says, "Yeah, we're gonna have this out, blah blah blah." Now this was a rare case because I'm a skinny 20-something black kid with black frame glasses and all this other kind of stuff. So I am like the epitome of like non-threatening black man. And as it happens, white cop comes along, talks to both of us, and he kind of like realizes who's the crazy redneck with the baseball bat and who's who is this little kid? Who's this kid over here? And diffuses the situation. He asked me if I want to press charges, all this other kind of stuff, and I go on. But ever since that's happened, particularly in an era now where guns are far more ubiquitous than they were back in the 80s, I think if I had really panicked and instead of ducking into the store, I just kept running. I just kept running up the street, and there's this guy behind me. What is that looking like to the average person who's running by? Black guy running down the street. This other white guy behind him. Who's looking guilty? Who's looking innocent? And these are the kind of things that if you're a black person, these are the kind of things you're negotiating every day. If you end up running into somebody who feels that because of their white privilege, they feel they've got the right to assert that you're the criminal. Sorry to get off on that rant, but
no,
I feel like it's another. It's this instance. This example is just like another startling, shocking instance where I am where the result of and what's the word I'm looking for, the presence of my privilege of being a petite white presenting woman, it really it slapped me in the face, mostly because I've been running recently. I've never been a runner, started running, that's been the one exercise I've been doing is running around Brooklyn. And to read a story where someone, for doing the thing that I do without fear every day is gunned down, it's horrifying. And it's there's so many, I feel especially being in the city and in a city where there is so much segregation and inequality, it's really there's so many instances where I feel I do get slapped in the face with that, where I try to be as understanding and cognizant of it. But for example, I remember there was a day a few months ago where I was trying to catch a train back when we could still ride the trains, and the card reader wasn't working. It was not working. And so I'm like, you know what, fuck this. There's no one around. I'm just gonna open up the emergency exit. I'm just gonna go through. I'm not gonna wait for it to go around and recharge my card, blah, blah, blah. And there was a black man who was also next to me. We kind of had this look what are we supposed to do? And I was like, you know what, fuck this. Let's go. Let's just go through. And he gave me this look are you kidding me? We're not, and it was another thing that just hit me. I'm like, oh, fuck. I know, but no one's here. It was and all this was kind of communicated without speaking, where it was I know, I hear you, but the train's coming. It's horrible. It's awful.
But I think it goes back to kind of what we were saying with the Flynn stuff. Are we really that shocked by it? But there's so many people who are not black or brown that are completely shocked that this has happened. And it's for my, my dark, black, brown skin friends, and I am super white passing even as a Latina, I couldn't go for a run during the day yesterday, and I wanted to do the 2.23 miles in his honor. And so I went at night. And not once did I think about it until I got back and I said, my friends can't do that. Mm-hmm. And I think it's shocking, but it shouldn't be shocking to us. And a lot of people have said, why does it take a video for us to believe that it was wrong? And why does it take that much time for white presenting and people with privilege to be standing on the streets with people protesting? It shouldn't be. It isn't shocking, unfortunately, to like my friends, and it's a very frustrating space.
What was most shocking about this incident was, it might have been on Fox, but the president was asked about this, and he said.
He first gave a treatise on how law works involving stand your ground laws and all of that, like relied on his Juris Doctorate, then talked about systemic oppression, and then
not
quickly
quite,
deviated to his sourdough bread recipe. And
this was I've been critical of this president before he was president and so forth, but he said. And he couched it in these terms of, well, the video, there's part of it we don't see, blah blah blah. But he then says, this looks very troubling. This looks very disturbing. And to give Donald Trump credit, and I checked this out. I checked this a few months back, because there was another one of these episodes, and I said to myself, well, let's see what Donald Trump said during the Trayvon Martin episode. And I expected one thing, but I found something different. And he said back then, and I looked at a couple of different places to see if I was reading this right. He did not jump to where you would have expected him to jump. He said. This George Zimmerman looks like a bad guy. He was told to stay in his car. The 911 operator told him to stay away, and I don't know why he's doing this. After the court case, he said, well, we have to respect the jury, blah blah blah. But it was interesting that he never defended George Zimmerman, and he gave a for him, admittedly we're grading on a curve, for him a reasonable thing, saying troubling, disturbing video. So
I think
that's how extreme it is.
Greg, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Tom.
No, please.
It's so bad that even Donald Trump was like, whoa, racist.
I'm not taking anything that Donald Trump says about any hate crime with any grain of salt, because I was alive. I remember him calling for the lynching, for the killing of the Central Park Five, even after the evidence came out that they were innocent.
Fair.
That's never going to go away. So I don't care what he says about Zimmerman. I don't care what he says about this. I ain't listened to what he said. This is exactly like Trayvon Martin case. A white man, in this case, two white men, stalked a black man that they thought had committed a crime, and now we know there were no rash of burglaries going on in that neighborhood at all, period. So this was exact, and just like Zimmerman chased down a black guy, Zimmerman at least had the sense to call the cops first and say, hey, I think this guy's pretty shady, and I'm going to leave out the part where I'm going to go shoot him, but I just want to let you guys know that there is a black guy here wearing a hoodie, armed with Skittles, that it's probably up to no good. So this was exactly like Trayvon Martin. It was two men with guns in a pickup truck. You can't get more. It's like if you're writing a redneck movie, or like A Time to Kill 2. Like, how can you get more rednecky than this? It's like Norman Rockwell drew painted a picture of, okay, we need two guys going against.
They were driving in the same car. What's the TV show?
The Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah, if they were in the Dukes of Hazzard car with the Dixie flag on it.
Yeah, like the rebel flag on it. So
but I think. Sorry, go ahead, Craig. No,
finish. No, finish, Sean.
You sure?
Yeah.
No, Craig, you finish, please.
Yeah, please.
But I'm saying this is exactly like Trayvon Martin. With Trayvon, we didn't have videotape this time. We do have videotape. It still took way too long for these arrests to be made. I'm not holding my breath that this will turn out any different than with George Zimmerman. I hope to God that's not true. But if it is, I'm prepared, like I've been prepared for every other time.
And that's shitty.
It's very shitty, Sarah. I agree.
It's shitty.
I'm going to say, I think in terms of the president, I think that speaks less to like a sudden and I think you're right, Robert. And I think it's important to flag that even the president did say like, this is troubling, disturbing, which I did not expect. But I think that speaks probably more to he being someone who goes towards the popular opinion, and the popular opinion that he sees right now is that most people don't like it. I do think the needle on these stories has moved a little bit in the last few years, as we talked about, which is, I think, for years, white people, and I would throw myself in this book as well, are the kind of people who, when these stories come out, be like, well, it sounds bad, but I want to hear both sides of it. And I do think now white America is in a place where, like, when they see the videos, at least, are like, oh shit, this is bad. And I think that is just the president echoing that too. I suspect if this becomes a touch point of things to come, I'll be interested to see what his comments are on the issue next week. But I think we're going to leave it there for now. But thank you very much for that. Was for the conversation. Before we get going today, as we do every week, we throw it to the panel to give the folks at home something to read, listen to, watch, or just do when you're at home. And, you know, past examples have been as complicated as like ongoing movie festivals of various genres to as simple as just doing yoga and meditation at home. And this week, I'm actually going to re-up something I said a few weeks ago because I don't think I gave it its due, which is I am listening to the podcast iPodius on the Maximum Fun Network, hosted by John Hodgman and Elliot Kalin, where they review the 1970s show I, Claudius, and it's episode by episode where they watch it and then discuss it. And I recommend it because, first of all, Kalin and Hodgman are hilarious. And second of all, because we're all kind of stuck at home watching TV, it's a slightly more enriching binge process for me because I watch the show, then I listen to this podcast where they interview people from the cast and talk about the culture at the time. The show, I'll be honest, does nothing for me, but the conversation on the podcast does a lot for me. It's very interesting, and it's a more enriching experience than just turning on The Practice and putting that on for hours at a time, which I'm also doing. Good show on Hulu. Check it out. But iPodius on the Maximum Fun Network. Andrew.
Man, I have jumped feet first into some hardcore hobbyist this week. I got a mandolin, and I'm going to try and teach myself mandolin because I really like bluegrass, and I'd like to learn one thing at least at a basic level through this. The other thing I did, I don't know how this one's going to pair out. I bought all the parts to make my own watch. So I've got like the timepieces necessary to make a wristwatch, and I'm going to make my own watch because that seemed slightly more flashy than a ship in the bottle or a train set in terms of eccentric, lonely hobbies.
Well, Andrew, you literally have too much time on your hands.
God, you're right.
Mind, Robert. I was going to say, if you wanted to make a watch, you got nothing but time.
Man, that was pretty good.
Thank you.
That was great.
There it is.
Andrew, I really hope every time I talk to you from now on, it'll be 5 minutes behind when we
Wait, it's Saturday? What the fuck? My watch says Thorpe's Day. Is that even a day?
Yeah, watches don't say what day it is, and why does my watch say June?
Are you going to start an Etsy, Andrew?
Maybe, yeah. That seems like it'll be a real profitable business of making watches. Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. Jolie, something for folks to read, watch, or do, or just, while existing at home.
Yeah, so the one like shining moment of every week for me has been my friend Jack O'Keefe, for you Philly folk, anyone who knows him. He hosts a weekly, what in Philly we call it Quizzo, but it's like pub trivia. And he hosted on Twitch. His Twitch stream is Jack Oakleaf. So every week it's basically, he does like Google Forms, and it's pop culture trivia. And you can win some like little prizes. Usually a Christine Baranski air freshener is the prize. But so me and my partner have been every week we play Jack's Quizzo, and we order a pizza, and it's like our one fun night where we don't have to think about anything. So yeah, check that out and order a pizza if you want something to do on Friday night.
I tell you that you said Christine Baranski air freshener, which means me and Robert will be playing next week.
Perfect.
Sarah, something for folks to do at home.
Ooh, I mean, I've been taking a lot of really long walks, and for those of you in New York especially, I think it's been interesting. It can be very depressing to see all of the kind of like emptiness, but there's been some very cool new photos put up of our medical professionals and all of that. So I think I'm going to put them all together in a nice coffee table book. I'll send you guys one.
Please.
Maybe I'll do an Etsy. Andrew, I'll sell your watch on it.
Business.
Your
It'll be
one
good.
watch. And then, I'm gonna be real. I've been diving into Real Housewives. Been watching it on demand. They are fantastically entertaining, and a good podcast. There's a podcast from Gimlet. I don't know if you guys follow Gimlet. It's called Without Fail. They talk to a lot of different entrepreneurs, sports stars, politicians about some big failures in their life and how they've pushed through it to create things. I think it's very interesting. So it's great.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Craig, something for folks to do at home.
Well, since I'm a firm severe TV addict and I've been training for this my entire life, since we started being locked down, I've seen in their entirety, obviously Tiger King, Ozark, but I binged the entire seasons of Killing Eve, Pennyworth, Power, Schitt's Creek, Money Heist, Afterlife. I just finished Hollywood. But if
TV's blaring at you at once to get through all of that,
you gotta get. If I knew how to make a watch, I'd tell you how much time I spent watching all thise. But now that I have nothing but time,
for $1,200, I'll make you one.
To all of you that right now, the show that I'm watching, and I don't know if you all have Hulu, but if you have access to it, the series Mrs. America.
Ooh, is it good?
It's a true story, and some of the characters I made are fiction, but most of them are not. It focuses on the 1972 election and the women that made that election go. Shirley Chisholm, Gloria Steinem, Betty Friedan, amazing cast. We have Emmy winners, Oscar winners. Comes out every Wednesday on Hulu, but I'm just wanted it to go through the whole thing just to watch it. But Mrs. America on Hulu, I cannot recommend that enough. And because the pandemic started like right in the middle of March and everything was all crazy, I didn't get a chance to wish a happy birthday. So happy belated birthday to Jolie Darrow, born March 21st.
Thank you. Wow.
Happy belated birthday to all of you. I'll just go ahead and say, or early birthday.
Yeah. I'm March 26th. Way to go, March 26th.
Happy belated birthday, Sarah.
And happy early birthdays to me and Craig, August babies. I know that.
Yes.
Birthdays, but I know it was close to mine.
Leo in the house.
And finally, Robert George, recommendation for the folks at home.
Yeah, I will co-sign to a couple of Craig's recommendations because I think we've talked about them in the past. Mrs. America, absolutely fantastic, and Pennyworth, which I stumbled onto late, but I took advantage of the Epic's free month, and that was like really cool. A mutual friend of Tom's of mine, a good improviser and a Navy vet by the name of Nick Markovich, decided on Facebook several weeks ago that he was wasting too much time with his Xbox, and he just said on somebody wants it, let me know and I'll send it to you. So he sent me his Xbox. I've never been a gamer guy, but I just said, okay, let's try it. So I finally he sent it to me, and I finally got it hooked up, and he included a couple of games in there, which I have yet to start playing because I suddenly realized, distracted here, that, there's an automatic Blu-ray player that's in there as well. And because of our streaming services, I've got like this whole library of DVDs and Blu-rays that I haven't played for quite some time because we get distracted with stream. And I'm thinking, I have not watched Network, the movie, in a long time. So
yeah, and
boom,
you can stream all the Hanging with Mr. Coopers. I know you have on back.
Well, that's exactly right. But the other one, another great one from the '80s, Max Headroom, which is Network and Max Headroom are the bookends of in terms of prescience of the hell that we're in right now in terms of stuff.
Similar.
So very similar.
People always say
anyway,
that's
how I'm wasting. I mean, excuse me, exploring my free time during the quarantine.
That is sort of a perfect summation of like the last 3 decades is Network and Max Headroom. That is it for our show. Thank you, Robert George. Thank you, everyone, for being with us this week. Thank you, Andrew Heaton. Thank you, Jolie Darrow. Thank you, Sara Valenzuela. Thank you, Craig Liggeons. And thank you, Robert George. And of course, as always, real quick, thank you to Kevin Scott for the show animation, Joanne Harris for the show theme song, Declan Shalvey, Jordy Bellaire for our show Eagle Art, and of course to my buddy and pal Ned Thorne for helping me put these together every single week. Now we're going to throw you over to Queens, where my friend David Wade is going to play us out on this Sunday. Ned Thorne, star wipe us to Queens.
Hi, everybody. I'm David Wade. I live in New York City. And I'd like to thank Tom for this opportunity to close out the show. This is a little jam called Blame Your Mother. Thanks.
What you do to you,